Welcome back to the All Ball Podcast, where it's all ball all the time. You are here with your host, Sean and Isaiah. This is episode number 37, and today we're going to be giving out grades to the teams that have been eliminated in the play-in. So that includes the Cavs, Clippers, Spurs, and the Hornets. And then we're going to give our playoff predictions for the rest of the playoffs. But before that, as always, Isaiah, how you feeling today, man?
You know, I'm really excited to finally get into the full swing of the playoffs. This is where the game really shifts and you get to see teams play like there's real meaning behind every game because, well, there is.
Oh yeah, every shot counts, every minute counts. Everything is just so meaningful and so intense from tip off to finish. But yeah, man, so let's get into these grades. Which team do you want to start off with?
You know, I believe we started in the West last time because we started with the Rockets. So let's start at the East this time. And let's talk about the Hornets because, boy, were they disappointing once again in terms of just the way they got eliminated. So between the fact that they practically had a repeat of last season with how they were eliminated and the fact that their season was mostly exciting, but they definitely kind of tapered off towards the end, probably gonna have to give them about a C.
That's exactly what I was going to give them. There's some good things in there, like Miles Bridges' progression, LaMelo's progression. Like you said, though, they did taper off at the end of the season, and the exact same happened whenever they're in the playoffs playing from last year when they got, torn apart by the Pacers.
Yep.
They didn't get to add their big defensive center that they wanted, which is one of the reasons why I also kind of bring their grade down. And I'm sorry, I forgot his name. Miles Bridges. They really don't have someone to pair with LaMelo yet that could be that second star.
You know, I think it's just going to have to be Miles Bridges, especially since he's up for an extension this offseason, I believe. So they're more than likely going to give him that extension because of the promise that he's shown. And at that point, when that extension does kick in, they're going to be in a really tight spot financially, and they're going to have to commit to him as this 1-2 punch with LaMelo.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of trades being circled around Christian Wood. I don't think Christian Wood is the move for them.
No, I don't see it. I think that's terrible for them because the Hornets, despite how good that they look and how high they could be in the seedings at times, they're in a very similar spot that we are. So I don't think moving Christian Wood to another team that's trying to develop players for the future is really the right move.
Yeah, I think they're another very deceiving team from the record. They played good, like I said, for at least a good portion of the season, but a lot of it is still them just being young and not having any defense. So, yes, they made the play-in, but it's almost like the Hawks. The Hawks were bad, most of the season. They didn't have no defense. Clint Capella was bad. So they were also deceiving. But, yeah, like I said, I don't think the Christian Wood trade works out just because he's not a defensive center, which is exactly what they need. They need some kind of defense.
I was going to say, and another thing is that as much as we love Christian Wood on the Rockets, defense is not his specialty.
Yeah, they need some kind of defense, whether it's perimeter, wing, interior, anything. They really need anything.
Yeah, I think that they should focus on interior defense because preventing teams from getting to the rim is one of the best ways to force teams into bad shots. So I think it would be better for them to focus on getting a nice interior force. I'm not saying they should go for this player specifically, but someone like Rudy Gobert, in the sense that you build the team's defense around this rim protector.
Right. I really thought they should have thrown a good of amount of assets in for Miles Turner.
Hmm.
Another, I guess, less valuable guy that they could go after would be like Jakob Poeltl.
Yeah, yeah, that's another good one. He's very underrated.
Good defensive center. Um, they obviously they wouldn't have to give up as much. Maybe
Yeah,
a first and a young guy, but it just kind of depends on how much talent they actually want to bring in.
yeah. The way, honestly, I think they could get away with getting him by just giving up whichever Martin twin is the one they kept, and then, like
Mhm.
you said, a first, and they could probably get Pirtle for that.
Right. I think the Spurs though might want to try to get Book Knight though.
I
They
could
they're
see
pro-
that.
they're probably gonna want one of
But
those young guys.
but at the same time, I don't know because the Spurs are a very guard heavy team right now. So
Then maybe they go after like Kai Jones or something.
yeah, okay, that is a possibility there.
hmm
Man,
but yeah,
Kai Jones would be a funny fit on the Spurs. This super athletic guy, and Greg Pop is probably going to turn him into a fundamental player.
man, it's gonna look like Katie in the post trying to play like Tim Duncan. But yeah, man, that's the grade for me, which is a C.
Hmm. Yeah, and since we're talking about the Spurs, we can go ahead and move over to them now. And
Okay,
for the Spurs, I don't want to repeat, but I also don't want to disrespect them. So I guess I'm gonna have to go with a C minus.
okay, I'm gonna give them a C plus just because they
Okay.
did overachieve a little bit this year.
Mm-hmm.
In all honesty, I expected them to be down there with us. Was one of the worst teams in the West.
Dang.
Yeah, I mean, really, I didn't see Dejounte blossoming like this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the big reasons why I do think that their grade should be around where it is because of Dejounte Murray's success this year.
Okay.
He's up there for most improved. I think it's one of the candidates for most improved.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's him, Garland, and I think people have Ja Morant in there, but I don't know if Ja's on the official.
hmm Josh Primo, when playing, he was actually good for
Mm-hmm.
being as young as he is. He's decent. Still a lot of work. Uh, I'm trying to think of all their young guys right now. Keldon Johnson.
Yeah.
I'm missing one more guy.
Vassell.
Yes, Devin Vassell. That those four right there are pretty much their main building blocks for the future.
Mm-hmm. Which is unfortunate because they're all guards.
Right.
With the exception of Keldon Johnson, who does a little bit of guard forward, but is still not very tall.
Yeah, he's undersized. I think in the draft they really need to go after a big man.
Yeah.
Like,
Or even if not a big man, like a solid wing player who can slide to the four if necessary. Yeah, that they need one of those two.
um, yeah. Was there anything like else other any of the players you saw for the Spurs that kind of popped out to you this season?
No, but I do want to elaborate on why I went for C minus instead of C plus.
Okay.
And because the way that you sort of emphasize why they deserve the C plus is because of Murray's progression. And the reason why I don't give them bonus points for that is because, as you remember from when we played fantasy last season, I had DeJounte Murray on my fantasy. So
yeah,
I already knew what he was capable of. I specifically drafted him because I know what he can do. And this
right.
season, although it may seem like he took a huge leap, he really didn't take that huge of a leap. It's just the Spurs were better this season. They were definitely a lot closer to really being in the playoffs than last season. Yeah, so that effect that his play style had on winning this season is what made it seem like he took a huge leap.
Okay. So this point right here that I'm about to make wanted to make me bring my grade down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that although they did good and made the plan, was it the smart move to do that good?
Oh yeah,
Like,
no, not at all. No.
yeah.
they
Um,
they definitely still need to focus on getting pieces out of the draft. So nearly making the playoffs was a horrible decision for them.
right. I mean, although it's Pop. Pop's not going to lose as long as he's there. He's not going to purposely try to lose.
Oh yeah, no.
So they have the right idea, just the wrong coach.
Yeah.
It sounds weird saying wrong coach for
Yeah.
Greg Popovich, but
But it,
out of context, that sounds terrible.
yeah, it sounds terrible out of context, but for what they need for the future of this team, Greg Popovich is the wrong coach for that.
Hmm. All right, so you want to go ahead and move on to the Cavs or the Clippers?
Yeah, well, we can move to the Cavs.
All right, I have to give them a B plus.
That's funny. I was actually going to give them a B, so around the same area.
Hmm.
And I think it's honestly them and the Clippers are kind of in a similar spot for me where I don't really feel fair giving them a grade because what they could have done versus what they actually did because injuries just crippled their team are two
Hmm.
very different things. So, based on what the Cavs had done before injuries, just really injuries were a problem for them the whole season from beginning to end. It's just once they started hitting their really key pieces that helped them turn this season around, then that's when they took a hard dive. So I think excusing those injuries, since that's not a controllable factor, this is really an A plus season for them. But
Hmm.
because of those injuries, they tanked horribly in the standings. And then on top of that, they were barely getting Jared Allen back for the play in game. And Darius Garland was he wasn't great in the play in game. So it's all around a horrible mess that they shouldn't have been in the first place.
Right. When they were healthy, though, I think that they saw that they could actually compete for the most part. I think they're a couple pieces away still.
Mm-hmm.
But another thing they found out is that they don't need Colin Sexton next to Garland. I
Oh
think
yeah,
they can
no.
just run with Garland, and that's it. They can get rid of Sexton for something that they need.
Mm-hmm.
What they need, I don't really know at the moment. I think that they're, for the
I think
most
they
part,
they need another backcourt mate with Garland, but it just needs to be someone who can defend and shoot.
mhm. So you don't think Okoro is that guy for
Well,
them?
he's a forward, so um, he
Wait, so they don't start Garland, Okoro, Levert, Mobley. Wait, no, I'm
oh, you
thinking.
see, that's the thing. I don't think that they should keep Levert as a long term piece.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying there.
it's because their lineup with their injuries have changed so much. They've run, Garland, Okoro, Markkinen, Mobley, Allen, and it worked. They've thrown, Levert in there. I think they've even thrown Kevin Love in there at some point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kevin Love, another point too. He looked good coming off the bench this season for the
Yeah.
most part.
That's another reason why I say that this was a really good season for them, is
Hmm.
because after the horrible fiascos of last season, they found a way to make Kevin Love fit on this team with the proper dynamic, and just he played well. He was a good leader. He did what needed to be done to help this team do as well as they did before injuries.
Hmm. Yeah, that's all I really have on the Cavs. Is there anything else you wanted to say about them? I guess before we move on to the last team, Clippers.
No, that's all I got.
All right. Well, so the Clippers. My grade for the Clippers has to be a true B minus. I was in between B minus and C plus, but I'm gonna go with B minus just because you know Kawhi obviously out the whole season, Paul
Mhm.
George out a good portion of the season too, especially at the end. Um, and yet they were still somehow able to manage to keep a play-in spot. Yeah, so I'm gonna go B minus.
Yeah, I really don't want to give them a grade. This season was really unfair for them, but for the sake of what we're doing here, I'm just gonna give them just a neutral C, just to give them
Mm-hmm.
a grade. And it's like you said, Kawhi out the whole season. Paul George missed practically the whole season. He somehow comes down with COVID right when they needed him the most to make the playoffs. So that's just a lot of unfortunate circumstances there. And despite all of that, throughout the entire regular season, they managed to stay in eighth seed. And if it weren't for the play-in tournament format, they would have been in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like your evaluation of it. This very much was a season of just trying to get through it and end it as fast as possible
Mm-hmm.
because obviously can't compete for a championship without Kawhi and PG fully healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think their talent on their roster is bad enough to fully tank. And even at that, don't the who has their pick? Doesn't someone have their pick for this year?
I don't even know. I haven't kept up
I
with all the
I
trades
th-
that they've
I
made.
I think it's the Thunder because of the Paul George trade.
Yeah. If it was gonna be anybody, that's the
It's the
guess that I would
Thunder.
have made. Because
Yeah.
of course, the Thunder have another pick. Of course.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, I like your evaluation. It's not much you can really say about them because of, their injuries and all that. But I'm still gonna stick with my B minus for what they did.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, then you want to go ahead and move on to some more playoff predictions.
Yeah, let's go.
So, do you want to go ahead and do just the first round this week, or do you want to
Yeah,
do?
just the first round. Just the first round.
All right. Well, as we're recording this podcast right now, the Hawks and Heat are going at it, and the Heat are having their way. But yeah, which series do you want to talk about first?
We can just go in order that they're listed on the NBA app, which has the Miami Atlanta series, which is the game currently going on at the top.
Okay. I got Miami in 5 with this one.
Okay. Honestly, I could see it being a clean sweep.
Mm.
Yeah, I think Atlanta, they barely made it out of the play-in to squeeze into this eighth seed, and this Heat team, honestly, they looked good the entire season. So I don't think there's really anything that Atlanta can do to take anything from them, unless Trae Young just has a ridiculous, like 50-point game, maybe. Then I guess they could take one, but without some crazy explosion of scoring, I don't see Miami losing a game this series.
I only see them losing one game just because of I have a feeling that one game will happen of
Mm-hmm.
Trae Young. They don't have Capella. They don't have John Collins,
Mm-hmm.
two of their main stars. So that's why I'm going in 5. It could probably happen in 4. I wouldn't be surprised if it does happen in 4.
Mm-hmm.
But the one one thing that I will say is that I don't think the Heat season was as complete as you said. I do think they had those hiccups at the end, getting close to the end of the regular season.
Yeah, but
Especially with
at the end of the day, those hiccups never affected their record.
no.
Yeah, they are still the top team, or they were one of the top teams for most of the season, and then towards the entire end of the season, they were the top team.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler was going to fight Eric Spoelstra, and that's ridiculous. But yeah, man, I got this one in 5. I think this one's a pretty simple one. Not much to it. Hawks aren't strong enough or healthy enough to beat this team.
Yeah, that's really that's all
Yeah,
there is to it. There's not much left to say beyond that. So I
yeah.
guess we can go ahead and move on to the 76ers and the Raptors.
So at the moment, Philly leads this one 1-0 in the series. What did you see from yesterday's game, and kind of what your prediction is for the rest of this series?
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked that because before yesterday's game, I would have said that this is going to be a great close series and it could go either way, but I would take Philly. But
Mhm.
after last night's game, yeah, I'm gonna have to say Philly is taking this one in 5 or 6. I I don't think that there's any way that the Raptors are taking this series when they slow down Joel Embiid and then
Mhm.
still let Tyrese Maxey go off for nearly 40. So
Yeah.
it's like they slowed down Embiid. Harden, he was doing his usual playoff Harden things. And
Mhm.
Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris stepped up to win them this game.
Yeah. I got this one in 5 also. Gary Trent Jr. was awful. um, that's to say the least. He was just, other than just his shooting, he was pretty bad all around.
Mm-hmm.
But no, if you look at the box score, Embiid was third in shots taken and
Mm-hmm.
still had 19 points. That's crazy. And that's crazy. Um, like you said, Maxey went off. Harden, he's not that takeover kind of guy like he was on the Rockets anymore, but he still got
Mm-hmm.
22 and 14. Just still crazy. He was a little inefficient, but I mean, if you're getting 14 assists and still 22 points, I mean, you take that.
Yeah, you know what? 14 assists with one turnover. I was disrespecting him because of the horrible efficiency, but you know what? At least he slowed down on the turnovers.
hmm Uh, Danny Green didn't shoot the ball that well. I don't expect that to be the case for the whole series. Um, but yeah, I mean, this looks basically like the other series that the 76ers are going to be able to take this one pretty easy.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and move on to the
Next,
Bucks
Bucks
and
and
Bulls.
Bucks and Bulls. And being a biased Giannis fan, I'm calling it a sweep.
um, Not being a biased Giannis fan, I'm gonna say this one goes either in 5 or 6.
Okay.
Yeah, although the Bulls have been good for half the season and then on a downward trajectory for the other half of the season,
Mm-hmm.
I think they're still a good team. They may not be what they were, the first 25 games into the season,
Mm-hmm.
but they still have DeMar, who for the most part played at an MVP level this season. Um, they still have Levine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think who else. The Vooch,
Yeah, they
but
got
I mean
Caruso
Vooch,
back.
yeah, Vooch, but I mean Vooch is a guy that you say he's a star on your team,
He's
but
not.
man, he can really just throw the game for you.
Yeah. The many Bulls games that I've watched this season really showed me just how disappointing of a player Vucevic can be. There were
Mhm.
so many times where he was right under the basket, right at the rim, and just missed the layup. And I like the fact that I can vividly remember him doing that multiple times just shows how embarrassing of a quote star player he is.
Mhm.
Yeah, so with that being said, the another reason beyond, my bias Giannis fan card is that the Bulls have been terrible against top seeded teams in both conferences for the entire season. The
Um,
Bucks are one of those top seeded teams that gave them trouble for the entire season. So I think that says all that needs to be said about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just they clearly have nothing that they can do to stop the Bucks. So it's just going to be a matter of how well can everyone outside of DeMar and then Levine, when he gets hot, score the ball.
Right. Obviously missing Lonzo is gonna hurt them a lot, but even with Lonzo, I don't think they win the series just because what they really need is someone to guard Giannis, and they don't have that at all.
Exactly. They don't have a good rim protector. They don't have a lengthy perimeter defender who could also body him up. So
Mm-hmm.
there's just nothing that can be done about him.
Yeah, if Lonzo was here, I think they could put him on Middleton and Caruso could guard Drew. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, it's obviously Giannis who's 10 times scarier than in either of those guys combined.
Yep.
So it's going to be the Bucks for this one. If the Bulls even take this to 6, I'd be surprised. So it's more in the 5 area. I think that the Bucks will win this one in.
Okay.
But all right. So the last series in the East is going to be the one that I think both me and you are looking forward to the most in
Yep.
Boston Brooklyn series.
Yeah, I think this is the series that anybody who's not a direct fan of any of the other teams in the playoffs should be most excited about.
Mm-hmm. So who do you got in this one, and in how many games?
Oh man, this one's a tough one.
This one is a hard one.
Yeah, it's really tough, but I think I'll go. Oh, I think I'll go Brooklyn in 7.
Okay.
Okay, and here's my explanation. Boston has been on an insane hot streak to close the season. But one thing about this team is that consistently for the past however many years, I think 5 years that they've had Jason Tatum,
Mm-hmm.
this team has never shown up when it matters in those tense situations, game sevens, closeout game. They always look really bad, whether it be against the Cavs with LeBron, whether it be against the Bucks. It's always been a really unfortunate situation for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with the experience that Brooklyn has, Kyrie, who hit one of the most important game 7 shots of all time. You have Kevin Durant, who, while having one of the most notorious game 7s of all time, is a champion nonetheless. And we saw what he did last year throughout that entire Bucks series. So I think it's clear that Brooklyn could take this if it goes to a game 7.
Yeah, I got Brooklyn in 7 too. I would not be surprised though if Boston does win this series.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, they're the hottest team going into the playoffs.
Yep.
And is this the time that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown actually prove that they could do something in the playoffs? It could be, but at the same time, how are you going to bet against Kevin Durant, who's quite possibly the best scorer in the league?
Yep. And Kyrie Irving, who's definitely top 5 or top 10 in that category.
Mm-hmm. And he's been doing pretty well coming into the playoffs. Not like how he was to start I guess
Start his season.
start his season. Yeah. But yeah, man, I think this is going to be a very interesting series.
Yeah.
And it could either go like back and forth, one game, or it could be like Brooklyn gets 2, Celtics get 2, and then Brooklyn takes it, you know. But this is one that I'm probably going to watch mostly over the other games.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think the only way Boston really takes this series is on the defensive end. That's the only way I could see it. They'd have to play the Nets like the Bucks did last year and just out defense them, which, as we saw, still only barely worked. So that's a tough ask for Boston.
Yeah, and then Boston obviously doesn't have the defense that Milwaukee has.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all right, well, let's go ahead and move on to the West now.
Mm-hmm.
So, first series is going to be Phoenix, New Orleans. Obviously, I think that's very easy
Yeah,
to
that.
predict.
Yeah, we really don't need to say much. It's a definite sweep,
Yeah.
and that's really that. We can just move on past that one.
clean clean sleep for clean sweep for the Suns. All right, so Dallas, Utah.
Dallas, Utah. This is an interesting one because with Luka now dealing with this calf injury, I think Utah takes this one in 5, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's not much that the Mavericks can do without Luka there really carrying them as he's done every year. He's had them in the playoffs. Well, these past 2 years he's had them in the playoffs.
Right.
Without Luka there to do all of that back breaking carrying that he does, it's just the Mavericks are in a horrible spot.
Yeah, I got the Jazz in 5 or 6 too. Don't get me wrong, the for Tim Hardaway Jr. and Luca being out, they still put up a pretty good fight.
Mm-hmm.
I think their big problem is that they don't really have no one to guard the interior that well. Like they have Dwight
Mm-hmm.
Powell, but I mean, it's Dwight Powell.
I mean, you know
um,
what? I'm not even going to disrespect Dwight Powell like that because, he did give Giannis a run for his money in the game that they played. So Dwight Powell can show up when he needs to. But at the
um,
end of the day, that's the most that he's going to give you is some interior defense and some rebounding. He's he's not going to go out there and get you 30 or 40. And
yeah,
that's what this team needs with Tim Hardaway and Luka out.
yeah. Jalen Brunson was awful. That's, I mean, if he hits maybe like 3 or more of those shots, this game's basically tied. I mean, if you don't look at his efficiency, it looks like he had a good game, but that 9 for 24 is pretty bad.
Yeah, it's just can't have those kinds of games and a series like this against a team that's really good and you don't have your best player. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that just simply will not get them out of this series.
Mm-hmm. And what they lack the most is what they're missing in Luca, which is his playmaking.
Yep.
But all right, well, I think that's pretty much it for that series. That series is, I think, pretty obvious what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Golden State versus Denver.
Golden State versus Denver. After what I saw last night, I think Golden State takes it in 6.
In 6.
Yeah, the fact that they have guys who can step up and do what needs to be done when you least expect it, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing that has gotten Golden State as high in the standings as they are throughout the whole season. No matter what adversity they faced, whether it be Draymond dealing with injuries as usual, Steph dealing with injury, Steph playing terribly, they still found a way to make it work with Jordan Poole, Gary Payton II, Otto Porter, just any and everybody. Can't forget their all-star starter, Andrew Wiggins. They always found a way to make it work. So I think they'll find a way to make this series work.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm gonna say Warriors in 5 though. I don't think Nuggets get to 6 just because their 2 other stars are out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've been out basically the whole season, but like you said, the Warriors team has players that find a way to step up. And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know Steph Curry was coming off the bench yesterday. And when
Yeah,
I
I
saw
knew
it,
he was gonna play, but I
yeah,
didn't know that they were gonna have him coming off the bench either.
yeah, that's the same thing for me. And when I didn't see him in the lineup, I was like, oh, maybe he got scratched last minute. But no, I saw him taking off the warm ups and heading to the scorers table. I'm like, did he forget to be in the starting lineup, or was he in the restroom or something? Or No, they just brought him off the bench, which is very confusing to me.
Yeah, but you know what? Actually, now that I think about it, that is extremely crazy because when Klay Thompson came back, he didn't come off the bench. They started
Yeah.
him and just played him less minutes. So to have Steph not start, that is pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy.
I mean, I don't think I'd ever hear the words Steph Curry came off the bench in a playoff game in my life.
Yeah, especially when you add in the fact that it's 2022. Steph Curry came off the bench in a playoff game in 2022.
Yeah, out of context, that sounds like he just had like some kind of outside the court trouble, and they're like, we're gonna punish you, but not fully because you're Steph Curry.
Exactly.
Um, all right, well then let's go ahead and move on. I believe this is the last. Yeah, this is the last series.
Mm-hmm.
But on the Western side, it has to be definitely
The most
the most.
exciting one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who do you got with this series?
Yeah. This is definitely the Western Conference equivalent to that Boston Brooklyn series.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think it's funny that I say that because when you think about it, Boston and Brooklyn, both teams with B's, and then Memphis and Minnesota, two teams with M's.
Oh, that's true, and it's both 2 and 7 seeds also.
Yep, both 2 and 7s. Man, it really is a perfect mirror to that series.
For real.
But with that being said, this is a really tough one, and I really like how much drive Minnesota has shown, but I can't bet against the Grizzlies. I'm gonna say that they take it in 6 or 7.
Just like you said, you like the drive. I'm gonna have to go with the drive. I got
Mm.
Minnesota at 7.
Okay.
Ja Morant just looked super frustrated yesterday
Mm-hmm.
when everything wasn't going his way, which we haven't seen much this season because of how well they've played.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you're letting a team beat you by 13 and their third star only has 10 points, and he went 2 for 11, I mean that's pretty bad.
Yeah, I think bad's an understatement there.
Yeah. I didn't know what other word to use other than just flat out bad. Jaren Jackson Jr. obviously got in foul trouble and it didn't have a good game. But it's hard to bet against this team right now because how well Minnesota's been playing and what they're carrying into the playoffs, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I also think they have better veteran leadership on their team. I mean, it's Patrick Beverly. It's Patrick Beverly. But, I mean, are you taking Patrick Beverly's leadership over Steven Adams?
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, those are their two veterans. So, I mean, it's really a toss-up, but I'm taking Beverly. And if you look at Steven Adams' stat line, it looks like it's glitched because it says 24 minutes. He doesn't have a single point, only has 3 rebounds and 3 assists.
No. Oh, Big Steve, Aquaman. No.
Yeah, he didn't have the greatest.
Attempt a shot.
Nope.
Oh,
Hey, like you said, he's a team player.
like, man, I know you're a team player, but sheesh. Oh man, that is devastating.
Yeah, it looks glitched to me. But yeah, man, I got Minnesota in 7 for this one.
All right, I really cannot blame you. Minnesota has shown an absolutely fantastic ability to overcome adversity this season. So, if any bottom seed is going to steal a series, it's gonna be them and Brooklyn. Those are really the only two that I could see Well,
Mhm.
I guess Utah as well, but that's the different situation since it's a 4-5. It's a closer matchup.
Right, right, right. Yeah, but so is there anything else about this series or just in the playoffs in general that you think is going to happen? Whether it's a player, team, or anything like that?
I don't necessarily have anything about this series. That's done. Now,
Mhm.
as for the entire first round, first and foremost, I want to say, looking back at this Hawks and Heat score, man, all the Hawks fans out there, I really feel bad for you. Your team is getting packed right now.
Y'all gonna have to sit through 3 more games of this too.
But beside that, I also want to bring up an interesting question. Let's say that Luka does come back for this series and the Mavericks still lose.
Hmm.
What does that say about Luka's legacy? Because that will be 3 straight first round exits for him.
In my opinion, absolutely nothing
Okay.
because he has no second option there. Jalen Brunson is his second best player, and you're telling me that that's all they can give him is Jalen Brunson to be his second best player? You kidding me? And they want to talk about him like he's like Braun or something, like he can carry a bunch of nobodies. I mean, come on. I, there's no way they could talk about his legacy if Jalen Brunson is second best player.
Hey man, you know how ESPN is. They'll
No, I know,
definitely
I
do
know.
it. They'll do it.
Stephen A. gonna say something crazy like, "Oh, he'll never be a Hall of Famer because he couldn't win this series with Jalen Brunson as second best player." Get out of here.
And that is
um,
the point where I want to say we take the Michael Jordan approach. We saw what he did without Scotty, and then he got Scotty, and look at him now. So Luka just needs somebody to come in and truly be a second star.
hmm um, so I have a question for you now.
Okay.
Let's say there was, I don't think they have this, but let's say there was a first round MVP. Who do you think it's going to be?
Ooh, that's really tough to say without seeing every team play as of yet.
Hmm.
But man, uh, if I just had to take a super random guess, I'll probably put my money on Kevin Durant just because I think that series is probably going to be the closest series.
Hmm.
And so with that, along with my prediction that the Nets take it in 7, I think at that point the first round MVP has to be the guy leading that team.
Okay. Um, I'm going to go either Cat or Anthony Edwards just because of how well they played. And they're going to get most likely they're going to get a full 7 games. So their stats are going to look pretty good if they, play consistently well. Like I said, this should be a back and forth. I don't think any of the games are going to be a full blowout.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yesterday was
it was pretty close. It was close.
It was close. The score looks deceiving, like by 13, but for the most part, it was a close game. So yeah, I think it's either gonna be Cat or Anthony Edwards.
Okay, and that's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, man, that's all I got for the playoffs, at least for this first round.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything else you wanted to talk about before we go ahead and close this one up?
No, that's it for me too.
All right. If you liked the episode, go ahead and like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. Isaiah, any last comments? Not making the same mistake as last time.
The usual. Don't forget to share the podcast with as many people as you can. Just really help us get our name out there so we can keep providing you guys with great episodes.
All right, we will catch y'all on the next episode.